If you're worried that your kid's ACT score isn't good enough, that's exactly where I was a few years ago. But now I've scored a perfect 36 on the ACT 13 times, and I've helped 283 students to scores of 30 or higher on this test as well. I wasn't always able to do this though. When I first started, I didn't know how to prepare correctly and my score was stuck at a 31. So in this video, I'm gonna break down the 5 main lessons that I've learned over the last 10 years, because the ACT is one of the most important things that a teenager can do, but it's not your kid's fault if their score is stuck. It's that they're not using the right system. So the first lesson that I learned was that prep books are a trap. And when I was in high school, I was personally a 4.0 GPA student. I was taking all AP classes, all the honors classes, and I was flying through them with no problems at all. But the first time I took the ACT, I scored a 31, which just didn't match up with how well that I knew that I could do on the test. It's not a bad score by any stretch of the imagination, but I just knew that I could do better, and I knew that I needed to do better if I wanted to get into the best schools and earn the most amount of scholarships possible. So the first thing I did was what everyone does. They buy that big red ACT prep booklet and they start taking a bunch of practice tests. So I took a dozen practice tests out of that big red ACT prep book, and my score was still stuck at a 31. So what I learned from this was that repetitively just taking practice test after practice test and banging my head against that prep booklet is not something that's useful. It doesn't actually teach you how to take the test. So I realized that I needed something completely different, something that would actually help me build my skills rather than just testing my skills. So after wasting 100 hours and going nowhere with my score, I accidentally stumbled onto a better method, and it came from somewhere that I would have never expected. So I was on the baseball team back in high school, and one of the things that was part of being on the baseball team was that we had to work the summer baseball camps, where a lot of younger kids, they wanted to learn the baseball skills from high school students or high school players and our coaches and all of that stuff. What we did to start out the practice was just kind of practice everything. We were trying to hit them ground balls, have them throw over to first base, and it was a disaster. So obviously we were gonna have to fix something. So I called all the kids together and tried to cram the information down their throats by just having them watch me field ground balls, throw to first base, and say, hey, we need to do this with our gloves, transition through to the throw in this way, and just, force feed them the information. My actual high school baseball coach walked over, who knew how to teach kids to do better in the infield, and he was like, Carson, that's not how learning actually works. You need to actually break things down into fundamental skills that can be worked on individually so that the kids can actually improve in that one specific area rather than overwhelming them with all the stuff all at once. We found the highest priority for, infielders is working on footwork. So we just, we got rid of the gloves and we just worked on footwork for a few minutes. And then we transitioned to just working on getting the ball into the glove. And then we just worked on throwing the ball over to first base without the fielding part or without the footwork part. And after all of that, we were finally able to put everything together with a full kind of practice again, where we were hitting the ground balls to them, and then they would, use the footwork to get in the right position, get the ball in the glove, and throw it over to first base. And it wasn't perfect, but the kids were significantly better, and the overall process was a lot smoother than it was the first time that we tried to go through it. And so I realized that this was exactly the same mistake that I was making with my ACT prep. I was just trying to force feed all of the information to myself through these long, drawn out practice tests that covered all of the topics all at once. And that's why my score wasn't improving. So what I did instead was I just took Coach Frank's lesson and decided to find my highest priority areas to work on first, which for the kids, it was footwork. For me, it was the long math word problems that were taking up a lot of my time, and I was still getting a lot of these questions incorrect. And so then what I did in order to actually improve on those questions was that I created drills for myself to just work on those long math word problems. So I tried a couple different things out, and eventually I figured out that if I skipped reading some of the parts of the question and just focused on the question at the end, then I was able to do that a lot easier. And then I went down the list of different high priority topics, subject verb agreement questions on the English section, so on and so forth. And I just mastered those individual types of questions through the same drilling process. And then I was able to put all of those individual skills together with some more full-length practice tests. And by the time I walked into the testing center a few weeks later, I had built up all the muscle memory to the point where I knew how to answer a lot of the questions that the ACT threw at me before I even finished reading the question. I kind of already was able to just read the first half of the question and know exactly what the question was going to be and what I was going to do, because I'd done the drills so many times before. And so that's how I personally went from a 31 to a 36. But for your kid's situation, the couple things that you want to take away from this, make sure that they are working on their high priority types of questions. So find what that footwork is, or find what those long math word problems are and work on those specifically. And second, what you want to do is create drills to actually improve on those specific questions. And third, just like how the kids at the baseball camp couldn't learn everything all at the same time, what you want to do is just make sure you're focusing on one specific skill at a time rather than completely overwhelming your kid with everything all at once. And now once I had that perfect 36, I started to realize that there were a lot more benefits to having that score than I initially would have thought. The first and most obvious benefit of having that perfect 36 was that when I applied to college, I actually ended up earning over $500,000 in scholarships that I just would not have earned if I didn't have that perfect 36. But that wasn't even the best part. There were a couple other benefits that came with that score as well, like getting into 2 different top 5 schools, both MIT and the University of Chicago. I ended up attending University of Chicago, which a lot of people still give me some flack for, but both of those are top 5 schools. Both of them have sub 10% acceptance rates, so they're incredibly difficult schools to get into, and I would have had no shot at getting into them if I didn't have that perfect 36 on the test. But then, even years later, when I was at University of Chicago, I found that the ACT still kept giving me some benefits. I was able to put that 36 on my resume, and it just gave a little bit more credibility to pretty much anything that I ever used my resume for. So when I was applying to get into different clubs or RSOs, registered student organizations at UChicago, that was on my resume, and it probably made the application process a little bit easier for anything that I was doing on campus. And even years later, when I was working my job in investment banking after graduating from UChicago, I found out that my hiring manager for that job had actually considered the 36 on my ACT as a little bit of a separation between myself and some of the other applicants. Now, obviously that wasn't the only reason I got that job, but it did impact my application. So there were a lot more benefits to getting that perfect 36, and the ACT can actually stick with you a lot longer than you might think. And it's not just me either. There was a kid in our ACT coaching program a few years ago. His name is Jack, and he ended up scoring a 34. And he went off to University of Richmond with a huge scholarship there. But he actually texted me the other day and told me that he keeps that 34 on his resume, and it actually helped him when applying to a couple of the clubs on campus that are, apparently pretty difficult to get into. So the key takeaways for you, even if you think that the ACT is important, it's probably a little bit more important than you already think. The benefits of having a good ACT score extend way beyond just college admissions and scholarships. It gives you a little bit more credibility with pretty much anything that you ever do if you have a top score. And one of the things that I've learned, especially after working with a whole lot of high school students who have a ton of different priorities, is that it might be a good idea to prioritize the ACT over some of the other things that you might not have thought of. Like, it might be a good idea to set aside some time that you would have otherwise spent studying for a high school class or working on an essay for one of your high school English classes, and instead use that time to study for the ACT if you wouldn't otherwise have time to study for the ACT. Now, at this point, I had a perfect score on the ACT, I'd gone to a great school, and I was working in a great job. And that's when my sister called me up and said that she needed help with the ACT. So even though I was technically reaping all the benefits of having a perfect ACT score, I was realizing that the corporate world might not necessarily be the best fit for me. And at the same time that I was having this realization, my younger sister was applying to college. She had a 27 on the ACT, which obviously decent score, but she had aspirations to go to Ivy League schools or top 20 schools. And a 27 is just honestly not good enough to get into those top 20 or Ivy League schools. And to try and get that score from a 27 up somewhere into the 30s, she enrolled in one of those big name ACT prep classes that you've probably heard of before. But she was stuck in a huge class on Zoom with countless other students. She wasn't able to access the instructors nearly as often as she wanted to, and none of the course curriculum was tailored towards her specific weaknesses. So she ended up spending a lot of time working on topics that she already knew and not nearly enough time on what we would have considered higher priority areas for her, thinking back to her footwork or her long math word problems. And so obviously her score wasn't going anywhere and it wasn't improving from that 27 where she started out. And that wasn't her fault. She was just in the wrong system. Now, fortunately, I saw this was happening in real time, and I remembered back to when I was studying for the ACT and how much time I personally wasted on the ACT. So I decided to step in and help her out a little bit. So what we did is, fortunately, she had some practice tests that we could look at as well. We went in and we found her highest priority areas to work on, which for her specifically, transition questions on the English section were a big thing, for example. So what we did, we created drills for her to improve on those questions specifically so that she could build that muscle memory and ultimately improve on those transition questions until we had mastered pretty much all the types of questions that she was really struggling with. And so just a few weeks after pulling her out of that prep class and working way more efficiently, she ended up scoring a 33 on the ACT. And this score helped her get accepted into multiple different Ivy League schools. She got accepted to Princeton, Dartmouth, and Penn. And she ended up going to Notre Dame because she liked that one a little bit better. But she got accepted into multiple different Ivy League schools because she had that 33. And again, she probably would have had no shot at getting into any of those schools if she had been stuck in that prep class and had stayed at that 27. And so what happened is that a lot of her friends noticed that she went from a 27 to a 33 on the ACT and were like, how did you do that? And so one thing led to another, and I started working with a lot of her friends as well. And at the same time that I wasn't super happy in my corporate job, we started getting a lot of students who wanted to work with me, and decided that I wanted to have more of an impact on helping students get into college than just, running numbers in an Excel spreadsheet anyways. After a couple months of doing this and just seeing consistent results, I realized that I wasn't anything magic when I took the ACT and got a 36. There's a repeatable process that can be used, not just with one student, but with any type of student out there. So the big takeaway for you is that if your kid's score isn't improving, even though they're putting in time and effort trying to study and prepare for the test, it's not their fault. They're just in the wrong system. Whatever they're doing, it's probably not targeted towards their specific weaknesses, and they're probably not going through the proper learning process of building skills one at a time and then finally putting them all together in a cohesive way. If your kid was in the right system and it was personalized towards their weaknesses and they were actually going through the true learning process, then I'm sure they would be doing much better on the ACT. Again, it's not their fault if their score isn't improving. So now I'm a full-time tutor and I think everything's awesome. But I'm about to learn one of the hardest lessons of my career, and it was all my own fault. So there's a student that I was working with named Vikram, and his dad wanted him to work incredibly intensely because he knew just how important the ACT was. So he wanted me to work one-on-one with Vikram 4 to 6 hours a week, plus give him a mountain of homework outside of those lessons too. And because I was being paid hourly, I was perfectly fine with working with Vikram, 4 to 6 hours a week, even though, it might not have been the most useful thing for us to do that. I wasn't thinking about his time commitment, his strategy for which dates to take the test, and I definitely wasn't thinking about the overall burnout risk. So we really had no defined timeline for when Vikram was going to take the test, and I was perfectly happy just dragging things on essentially forever. And Vikram was probably working, 15 or 20 hours a week just on the ACT. So when we first started working together, he had just scored a 25 on the ACT. And after, a few weeks, I think probably 5 or 6 weeks, he was scoring into the 30s on full-length practice tests. But then after about 6 or 8 weeks, they actually started moving down in the wrong direction. And he didn't even take the real ACT until about 6 months after we started working together. He ended up scoring a 27 on the test. So he, after all of that work, moved from a 25 to a 27, even though he probably was capable of scoring well into the 30s if we had just taken the test at the right time and had a defined finish line for him to actually work through. Now, at the same time, I was working with a different student named Carter. We had a forced deadline of when he was going to have to be done with the ACT by, and that was about 7 or 8 weeks after we started working together. So we put together a plan for that 7 or 8 weeks, and he worked just about an hour or so per day, about 7 hours of total work per week. And because he didn't get burnt out through that entire time, he actually ended up improving from a 23 all the way to a 30 and ended up with a better score than Vikram, even though he started out much lower and did less work overall. So when I zoomed out and looked at this from a bigger picture perspective, I realized that there was something majorly wrong. I was the same tutor, I was the same person giving the same instruction, but these two outcomes were dramatically different. And I realized that the incentive structure for hourly tutoring is entirely broken. Tutors make more money when the process goes on for longer, and I realized that longer is actually worse for most students. To actually make it work, you need to have the full plan mapped out from the very beginning. It needs to be something that's personalized towards your kid's specific weaknesses and also their school schedule, their extracurricular schedule, everything that's going on in their lives, when they're applying to colleges, all of that stuff. And you need to create a plan that works for them. And so I realized that the right way to do things was not to just charge people by the hour, but rather put together a complete roadmap, a complete plan for every student who comes into the program to go from start all the way to finish. And then we could help them as much as they needed and create something that's fully personalized towards their specific situation, because every student is a little bit different. So the key takeaway for you here is that if your kid's trying to get a better ACT score, you want to make sure that their instructor's incentives are aligned with yours and that they're not going to make more money by just dragging the process on for longer and longer. The second thing is that you want to make sure that everything is personalized towards your kid's situation, not just their strengths and weaknesses. We already know that that's important, but also their timelines, their college applications, their extracurriculars, and everything that's going on in their life. That is not just something that's nice to have, it's an absolute must, as Vikram learned. And the third takeaway is that the right program is built around getting results as fast and as efficiently as possible, not obviously just billing more tutoring hours. And so with all of those lessons and key takeaways in mind, that's how we decided to structure things a little bit differently at Boosted Brains and build a dedicated team of a couple different coaches who could work individually with every single student who comes into the program and personalize everything towards what they need. And if you're interested in having your kid join our ACT coaching program, check out the first link in the description down below. Or if you want a free guide on how to get your kid a top level ACT score without wasting their time, click here to watch the next video.